Nick Saban back in the news once again being soft. Here's some quotes from Nick Saban. Name, image, and likeness is a good thing for players to be able to make money. But when it turns into pay for play, now you're getting into a different area. And then he would go on to talk about, well, I made a statement years ago and got very criticized for it. Is this what we want college football to become? So now it's kind of becoming that. I don't think it's going to be a level playing field because some people are showing a willingness to spend more than others. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there's a lot to unpack here.
Yep.
First off, very interesting that Saban would reference the last time he said, is this what we want football to become? When about 10 years ago in October 2012, as spread offenses came into the SEC and Hugh Freeze and up-tempo was beating him, he asked that same question, is this what we want college football to come? And you know what the answer is here? Absolutely. Absolutely. The fans love it. They love spread offense. It is 100% what they wanted college football to become. So on one hand, interesting to bring it up in that sense, but like it's just the fundamental flaw in everything that I just read out of Nick Saban's mouth is the implication that things were ever equal to begin with, that they've ever been equal. Like this man really set up there and said, quote, I don't think it's going to be a level playing field because some people are showing a willingness to spend more than others. Nick, that is rich. You put a barber shop in your football ops simply because you could, because you had money and needed to spend it on something to attract players. Like, what are we talking about? That is everything in life. College football has always rewarded those who are both willing and have the money to spend. So it's not like things are really changing. It's just the latest stage in evolution. The same way that the up-tempo offense was just the latest stage of evolution. So I don't really understand what Nick Saban's end game is here. It doesn't make any sense to me.
No, it went from, who had the bigger shiny facilities and indoor and weight room to now that plus obviously the spending when it comes to NIL opportunities for these kids too. So like it's the next iteration. It's the next thing. He also brought up, I believe, the fact of, I wouldn't mind us getting to almost the NFL model, getting a union, getting it to an equal playing field where everyone gets paid the same, essentially putting these kids almost on salary where, hey, you commit to a D1 university, Power 5, here's your salary for the year. I don't know what you would do with NIL at that point, because I would still think as like the NFL, you get your salary, but you can still go get a deal on top of that as well. So like, does that even slow it down anyways? If you're willing to pay, maybe then the boosters will say, okay, if these kids are getting X amount of dollars, I don't feel like my money needs to go to the players. I'd rather it go to the facilities. I don't think that would happen. I still think it'd be the same way though. Yes?
No, I mean, you fucking nailed it, Aaron. Like you nailed the other big disconnect in all of this. Because you're right. He goes on to talk about unionized employees, salary caps, which all sounds good on the surface, right? But as you said, salary cap doesn't actually change anything that's going on now. What's funny about Saban talking about a salary cap is he's basically exposing the very thing he's decrying. He's decrying pay for play. And yet with him talking about a salary cap, he's telling you that he feels like he is generating the money to pay these players. That although technically it's coming from businesses, that Alabama is in charge. So like, okay, you want a salary cap? That's all well and good, but can you stop players in the NFL from doing commercials? Right? Nope. Like you said, like that, all a salary cap would do would be money in addition to endorsements, right? Yep. Like, okay, I can sign with Alabama. I can get my $100K under the salary cap, but then is that going to stop the biggest, like the guy that owns Buc-ee's, Texas A&M guy? What's going to stop him from wanting to give $5 million to the number one quarterback in the nation to push Bucknuts?
Nothing.
So it doesn't actually address the issue at all. No. All it does is expose that, it all is pay to play right now. But like boosters and businesses will always be able to pay these players to advertise. So even that doesn't really solve the issue at all.
No, there's no solve. It was somewhat dirty and about money before. Now it's just legal and a lot more about money, and there's no changing at this point. Like there's nothing you could do. It is. I don't know if it's a crying call to his boosters because I know he's had some comments in the past
Mhm.
about it, about essentially they're not keeping up with say the A&Ms of the world that are willing to spend big time money to incentivize kids in the portal and in high school ranks to come to A&M or Texas or whatever it may be. These states that do care about football a ton and do have some deep pockets. You just have to sell a different narrative. And listen, it's not Alabama's not hurting on the recruiting trail. They've gotten top transfer kids in. They had the number one recruiting class in America. Like what they're doing now with maybe not as much money as maybe Nick Saban would like on the NIL front is still working. I think at the end of the day, like to me, I think these kids are still smart enough that like I think we do at times overblow NIL where we think these kids are just super, super greedy. Like, yes, there are some that just care about the money. I still think if you had to do a poll of rank in order why you're going to X university, it would be still one for the football, two would be for the NIL. I think football's still one.
I don't think that's true, dude. I don't think that's true. I think that's very interesting that you say
Mm,
that. I think it's like literally anyone
I
else
think
in
it's
life.
different for high school to. I think it's different from high school to the portal. I think kids in the portal, maybe a little bit more established, would say NIL, looking to go get a buck. I still think kids in high school are more looking for where can I go play football, play now, get to the NFL.
The problem is if they're a beast, this like the best schools are also the ones that will pay the most money, right? So me and you could watch the
Yeah,
same big
but
high
not
school
Alabama though.
commit to
Alabama has
yeah.
struggled at NIL. They have struggled with NIL.
I mean, is that true? Saban was, as Chad's pointed out, I mean,
Georgia
Saban was
has
out here
done too.
bragging
Georgia
about
has done
Bryce.
too. Yeah, that's one player though. Bryce is different. Bryce was not reigning Heisman Trophy.
Georgia struggled with NIL.
I'm not struggle. I'm not. Okay, struggling is the wrong world there.
Compared to
They're not
who?
struggling to say Texas, who took A.D. Mitchell, to
Yeah.
A&M. Like there are universities that are spending big, big, big time dollars to get players, and I think Georgia and Alabama are kind of saying Nick Saban and Kirby Smart have the mentality of that's great and all, but we want guys that play football, love football, want to win championships, want to go to the NFL. Like if
I'm gonna need this shit. I'm gonna need this shit. I'm gonna need some hard numbers on this because I do not buy this on a man-to-man basis. You will always be able to find individual exceptions like a Bear Mitchell or an AD or Bear what's
Bear
Bear
Alexander,
Alexander, or AD Mitchell. Like you'll always be able to find because Georgia has
dude,
so many talented guys that yeah, they can have a freshman D lineman that would immediately become the best player on USC's defense, but was like the fifth best player in Georgia's. Like he's not going. So like I don't know, man. I think Georgia and Alabama are doing just fine
they're doing
on
good.
the
They're
NIL
doing
front.
good. They are. I'm not saying they're lacking. Once again, I'm just saying there are other brands that are doing better, and that is what worries Saban. Which at the end of the day, I don't think it should. I don't. I think there's plenty of great talent out there that could still go to Alabama, maybe take a little bit of a pay cut, and set themselves up better for the future. Which the smart
That's the
kids would rather
thing.
do that.
The
I
only and
would
the
I
only thing we
would
disagree
take
about.
I would take 100K at Alabama or Georgia instead of 150, 200K at A&M.
Not
I would.
200K, not 200K.
I
If you,
would.
that's fucking bad business. So you should go to college
It's
to
not
get
bad
fucking
business.
smart.
It's not bad business.
That
No,
is bad
no,
business. Yes, it
it's not
is.
bad business.
It,
It is. You.
it
We
is
say bad business.
fundamentally.
But we applauded Sly yesterday for being good business by taking a pay cut from CBS to build the brand of the SEC. And now look what happened. Same thing
True,
with players.
true,
You take the pay
true.
cut, you go to a place that develops you, and you turn to a first round NFL draft pick where you get multi millions of dollars. I would take
It's
that
fair.
pay cut to go to Alabama or Georgia.
That is fair. But you're still getting the 100K. And the first question you're asking
Yeah.
is still, what is the NIL offers? Again, as it should be. One of the first questions you ask getting any job is, what is the number, right? Because that's what's going to determine whether or not I'm going to uproot my family, whether or not, like that's just how the world works. And I thought Lane Kiffin had some really good comments. He's just very honest about everything. He's like, that is what kids care about. It's NIL. What am I going to get NIL wise? That's going to be the first question, no matter what. Used to be facilities. That's what's going on now. I think that's, like I said, I think that makes sense. I think it's the same thing I would do. I think it's the same thing 99% of people would do. And although, Aaron, you're right. You're right. Especially going with Slive yesterday, the example of him was a great point. Maybe it's not always the most shrewd move to just take the money. But the vast majority of human beings are going to take the 200K over the 100K. And I don't blame them. I don't think that's bad. I think that, again, like all this stuff, like going back to what Saban said, right? Is this what we want college football to be? I don't know what college football is going to be. Who knows? I mean, we have been talking about fundamental changes to the fabric of the game and the foundation itself, like seismic type of changes. What I do know is that college football is going to continue, and I'm going to continue to love it, right? And it'll be better in some ways from my perspective. It'll be worse in some ways from my perspective. And you'll have other people who will view the same things just and interpret them the complete opposite way, right? So when Nick Saban says, is this what we want college football to become? The answer is that our wants are irrelevant. It is what college football is becoming. And college football will become what it is meant to be. And so at this point, we have to go back to our junior high economics classes and just trust in the invisible hand of Adam Smith, like trust in the market that everybody seeking their own best self-interest will in the end lead to a better overall product. And much like the invisible hand, yes, will it promote corruption, greed, oligarchy? Yeah, absolutely. But it's what leads us to 4 super conferences. It's what leads us to USC, Ohio State late in November. It's what gives us LSU, Texas in October. Like, this is how that all happened. So, like everything else in life, it changes and it gets new. And I guess you just have to hope that in your view, it gets better. But I know I'll be here for the show no matter what, because I love it and I'm not going anywhere. So it doesn't really matter what I want college football to be. There's no stopping it.